That is why, effective today, my administration is officially declaring the opioid crisis a national public health emergency under federal law, and why I am directing all executive agencies to use every appropriate emergency authority to fight the opioid crisis. This marks a critical step in confronting the extraordinary challenge that we face. As part of this emergency response, we will announce a new policy to overcome a restrictive 1970 rule that prevents states from providing care at certain treatment facilities with more than 16 beds for those suffering from drug addiction.
How's it going, world? Miguel Azul here, bringing you daily news. And I want to talk a little bit about something today. Our president just spoke, President Donald Trump. He spoke a little bit about the drug addiction that's going on in America, specifically opioids. And this addiction is nothing new. It's been something that's been present for quite some time now. He even spoke on a 1970s law that he's somewhat tweaking or omitting. Um, Nonetheless, his administration pretty much, it almost was a little bit reminiscent of the Reagans when Nancy Reagan declared, the war on drugs, or her husband declared the war on drugs, and she was just, um, I guess I would say the more suitable face to represent that particular project instead of Reagan himself. Um, it's quite interesting because the war on drugs ended up being a war on African Americans and Hispanics um, in poor communities. They were getting incarcerated for pretty much the same drugs as European Americans were, or different ethnic groups and nationalities of Caucasian people, but they were getting longer prison sentences. And this didn't only happen during Reagan's term. You can even trace it further within history. Actually, in the 90s with Bill Clinton and his, you know, three strike law. When his wife was running, they claimed that, the three strike law was not their intention, but who ended up suffering? Minorities did. The same thing that happened in the 1980s. Minorities ended up suffering due to the war on drugs. That's kind of like almost where the fatherless perception of certain minorities come from. A lot of male minority men were getting plucked up from their homes um, due to, unfortunately, poor financial situations and thrown in jail. Therefore, that's kind of almost where some of the malarkey concerning the absent father came from. But I'm getting off topic here. Let's get back into what our president was talking about, which, like I said, was very reminiscent of the war on drugs. Was I hope it doesn't turn out to be that, where people of color are getting an unfair shake per se. Um, and also with Clinton, I just hope it's not going to end up being that, even though everyone has their opinions in regards to the administration, and that's fine. I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion. No one's going to agree with everything. However, basically, when Donald Trump, or President Trump, just talked just now, he was, tweaking some things, saying that, drug institutions or drug centers that, if I understand correctly, they're, you know, they had a cap on, the 16 bed policy at certain smaller ones, and now they're lifting that cap to pretty much, in my interpretation, to help anyone that's suffering from this opioid addiction. And I guess that could somewhat be helpful. And some people, when I was watching the news earlier today, before he announced this combat on the opioid addiction, people were talking about, well, Is there going to be any extra money poured into, interventions and this, that, and the third? And that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like, just tweaking of certain policies that are um, basically not agreed with um, concerning this administration. So I'm hopeful that people will be helped as a whole, black, white, rich, poor, you know, minority, neighborhood, whatever. I believe that people need to be helped regardless of where they live. And that's something that hasn't, you know, been looked at enough. I think in our country we talk about it a lot, but things fall on deaf ear. Look at Portugal. They decriminalized drugs instead of criminalizing people. They, look to get their population help by putting them in centers, um, other, interventions. Because giving someone a record is not really going to help. It's going to make it harder for them to get a job, and that's across the board. Most likely more harder for minorities, but still difficult when someone has a record compared to one that does not have a record. Um, I hope in our country that we can get this together and help people as a whole in regards to this, stigmatizing people that, suffer from drug addictions. So, that's my opinion on the speech. It's, like I said, for the third time, it's reminiscent of Reagan and also, you know, President Clinton as well. But I'm hoping it doesn't turn out to be that. I'm hoping a lot of consideration and care is put into this within this administration. So yeah, that's basically my 2 cents. And I'm basically going to conclude this video. This is again Miguel Azul. And at News Daily, please hit that like, subscribe, and bell button to let you know when I come out with new videos. Generally, most of my videos be centered around news concerning, drugs and poverty. So if that sounds like it's up your alley and, you want to get my opinion, but also keep up with, news and policies and statistics concerning these drug issues, feel free to tune into my channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you here again. Take care.